Hello everybody and welcome back to Si Knows the Score, where today we are going to be doing Premier League predictions for the second game week after what was a little bit boring at times but also very interesting at times, which we'll certainly get onto shortly. And just to quickly recap as well from what we said in the previous predictions video, we are doing a weekly table which myself and others are doing. So there's 37 in our particular group, where 5 points are rewarded for getting the correct score, 2 points for the correct result, and of course 0 if you don't get either. So yeah, just on that, myself, I gained 14 points from my last set of predictions, and the win ended up with 20. And when it's been won in previous years, you do need roughly 14 points. So if you're all keeping a tally and you're all getting roughly 14 points on average per week, then you should be there or thereabouts in with a chance of winning the whole thing. So yeah, as mentioned, do get yourself involved, put your predictions down in the comments below, and then keep a tally as the season goes on, and follow this particular video every week, and we'll see how we all go, yeah, so just a quick one on that. So obviously the game week was a little bit, had its ups and downs with refereeing decisions, didn't it, which we'll definitely get onto, and a couple of 0-0s in there, which wasn't really the best advertisement from the Premier League. So but yeah, overall, you could say the biggest advertisement from the Premier League after two poor seasons for newly promoted candidates were two out of the three teams that were newly promoted actually winning the game, which I believe is the first time since the opening game weekend from 2007, which ironically I think Sunderland were one of those teams. So yeah, could that be a good omen going in for the rest of the season for at least two of the newly promoted teams? Who knows? But it would be better for the Premier League if there's that competitive nature, wouldn't it, at both ends of the table and not just 17th onwards. And so just a quick one as well, and just a quick shout out basically. There's a couple of shout of the weeks here. So for example, one person got 4-0 Man City, and then another person surprisingly got 4-2 Liverpool. I mean, who'd have saw that coming? I certainly didn't, so fair play to those people that did. And yeah, I mean, the biggest shock of the week apparently, and being a Leeds fan, it's hard for me to take this, but yeah, I mean, we won the game 1-0. I was there at Ellen Road, and let me tell you, it was an electric crowd. Obviously the first game back and against Everton. So yeah, I was very pleased that we got over the line there. We have struggled creatively, but we'll get into that soon. But 5 people got the correct result there, and 3 got the correct score. I've been slightly biased, you could say. Was one of those that did go with a Leeds United win. However, it did pay off and got me 2 points. So there you go. Now, getting into the video, and if you could just please drop a like, subscribe, and as mentioned, you could put your comments below as well if there's anything that you like with the video. But please do especially put in your predictions, and that will be really helpful. I'm definitely greatly appreciated, so thank you in advance for that. So moving on to the first game of the second game week, Friday night kickoff is West Ham versus Chelsea. Now, Chelsea, again, as I mentioned previously, are they still trying to get back up to speed after their long break, after obviously winning the Club World Cup? Yes, you would probably say so, because they've only played, I believe, 3 games now since returning, 2 pre-season, obviously against Palace last week, where it was a 0-0 draw. Arguably could have gone Palace's way, but it didn't. So yeah. So do I think it was a foul against Eze for the free kick? I do think so. I mean, look, if you're going off the law on this one, it's unfortunate, but the fact that they've got to overturn that decision so quickly, you do have to say fair play to the referee on that one, or even the VAR on that one, even, should I say, because they do get a lot of stick, and deservedly so at times. I do think it was the correct decision, as much as I did want Palace to probably go on and win the game. But did Palace just play well against Chelsea, or was it Chelsea just not at it? I think it was a bit of both. Palace play well. I also think Chelsea just need a little bit more to get back up to speed, and against West Ham, could this be the right time to play West Ham and find that first win to get the ball rolling for Chelsea? I think it could be. And West Ham aren't looking too good at all, and they are severely lacking up top. I mean, only Bowen, from what I saw, was the only person really trying to be or doing anything really against Sunderland. I thought Paqueta was a little bit disappointing. I thought maybe he had a bit more fire in his belly after his recent charges were dropped. I think even though Chelsea won't be 100% there yet, I do think they'll get over the line with a 2-1 win. I think the scoreline might look more tight than how the game probably will be, but I think West Ham will just get a goal in there, back at home, first game of the season. Chelsea not quite at it. I think 2-1's a comfortable scoreline nonetheless for Chelsea to get over the line. Which brings us on to the next game of Man City versus Spurs. And wow, didn't Reinders look like a top class player? I mean, we all know goals are part of his game last year. AC Milan, I believe he scored around 15 goals, didn't he? And it's already showing now. So yeah, fair play. I mean, his dribbling looked A-tiered and A-star tier if you want to go to that next one. That ball he played over the top two was class, and obviously his finish was also top notch. So yeah, he looks like an all good round player for about 47-48 million, I believe he was. And then with Spurs, was 3-0 a slightly flattering scoreline? Arguably so. I mean, Burnley didn't create a whole lot, but we're still in the game for the first 60 minutes. He did concede early on, which probably, obviously didn't help them at all. But yeah, I mean, Burnley didn't I don't think they have too much to bring out Spurs at the moment, in my opinion. I do think they're lacking a bit of quality. So I think Spurs' defence probably probably about it. They aren't going to take the... probably won't hold against the likes of what City are going to put across to them on Saturday. On the flip side, Spurs have had City's number in recent years, haven't they? It was something that's kind of been in the back of my mind. I mean, no matter which manager they've had, they've done all right, haven't they, against Man City? I just think you've got to go with it, haven't you? You've got to say, again, it's at the Etihad. They're just going to get over the line. I said just get over it. I think they'll definitely be the better team. I think that little Man City Spurs history might make it a little bit more of a tighter affair than probably how the performance might reflect. But I think City will come through this just about unscathed with a 2-1 victory. Although I did consider a 3-2 because that has happened a few times in their recent matches too. Which brings us on to Bournemouth versus Wolves. Now, Bournemouth were very brave at Anfield, weren't they, in their performance? Especially considering they lost 4 out of 5 other defenders from that played last season. So they will probably need a bit more time to gel and understand how each other play. I mean, ironically, Truffert looked quite good at left back for the Cherries. So again, he's another one to look out for. I think overall, Bournemouth, they didn't deserve to win the game overall, but they were definitely in the game, weren't they, until was it the 88th minute, I believe it was. So yeah, Bournemouth looked good already, didn't they? Not defensively though, of course. Wolves still need to make some quality signings, don't they? Especially if they're to stay out of the dogfight this year at the bottom. They weren't ever expected to beat Man City. Of course, you would hope as a Wolverhampton fan that first game of the season at home, where teams aren't always at necessarily at the best, could they have done a bit more against Man City? I mean, maybe 4-0 was a slight disservice to Wolves on the game, but they didn't really provide much up top, did they? So again, those signs are definitely required. I do think it'd be a somewhat comfortable win here for the Cherries, although I do think they'll still concede, but I do think they'll have a lot going forward still in Semenyo, Cliver and co. They do look very good and look like they just click and just have that chemistry up top. So I do think they'll put a couple past Wolves, and by a couple I mean 3, although I do think Wolves will probably just nick a goal at some point in the game. So I'm going to go 3-1 to Bournemouth. Which brings us on to, the previous set-piece coach of Keith Andrews with Brentford versus Aston Villa. Brentford looked shaky at the back. Chris Wood doing Chris Wood things, being clinical in front of goal too. I mean, 3-1, was it a little bit excessive? maybe not. It was a little bit tight at times, but again, the Chris Wood outperforming his XG from last year. It looks like he's going to be doing that again. So fair play to him. I don't really see it getting any easier for Brentford against a side struggling with PSR restrictions, or it seems to be the case anyway. Villa haven't really, lost the players that I think will deter them from winning a game like this. I do think Brentford won't score a set piece this goal, ironically. However, I do think it will be a clean sheet for Villa. They did have 10 men, but they didn't look great regardless, even until when they had 11 men against Newcastle. I do think with Brentford struggling maybe a little bit this season with the losses of players too, I think it'll be a reasonably comfortable day out for Aston Villa. So I'll go 2-0 and for them to keep a consecutive clean sheet for Villa. And then we get onto a huge game, don't we, with Burnley at Turf Moor against Sunderland. So in the second game, we've already got what you would consider a relegation battle, I suppose, yeah. I mean, Burnley had the trickiest start last week, didn't they? Away at Spurs. They looked okay against Spurs. They did lack creativity and firepower up top. I think that was obvious to see. Yes, it was against Spurs, who, of course, have spent a lot of money, have great players and a huge stadium. It's a great stadium, and arguably the best in the country overall. 3-0 may have been a little bit excessive and maybe didn't reflect fairly on the performance of Burnley. It's just up top. It just doesn't look great to me. It feels like top-end Championship players still. I do think they're going to need a lot more creativity, so they're going to go on and push for at least a 17th place finish for Burnley. Sunderland had a 3-0 win against West Ham, which again, probably a flattering scoreline. However, they were really, really clinical. They had an XG of 0.75, scored 3 goals, but were defensively solid too and kept the likes of Bowen out. So, that's also positives. First game at Stadium of Light, of course, that big crowd. First in the Premier League for quite a number of years now. They're always going to be on it, weren't they? So I think even last season, Sunderland were the better team against Burnley when they did visit Turf Moor, and they were very lucky that James Trafford scored 2 penalties in the dying embers of that game. I think the quality that Sunderland have brought in, I think overall it does. Is superior to Burnley now. I do think their squad is a lot better than Burnley's. So I do think it will be a victory again for Sunderland to put 6 points straight on the board, straight on the tally. So I'm going 2-1, and for Sunderland to really look like they might try and stay up this year. Which then brings us on to the Gooners, and they are playing against my team, Leeds. So I am kind of grateful to have this fixture now, because Arsenal didn't look too great, did they, at Old Trafford? Yes, it was against Man United, who are expected to perform well at Old Trafford, given all the signings that they've also made too. Arsenal were quite fortunate to get a win. I think if you're not being biased, then I think you would say that it was either going to be a draw or go Man United's way. The one thing I would say is that Man United even didn't really create a whole lot in terms of big chances. They had a number of half chances, but they certainly didn't create anything where you're thinking, right, they should have scored from that opportunity, definitely. So defensively, they still looked okay. They were just a bit shaky going up top. Gyökeres needs a few more games. He obviously didn't have a full pre-season, so I think some of the criticism was a bit harsh. I think he's only going to get better as the next few games go on. And then you got Leeds, who were very dominant in that first half against Everton. 12 shots, dominating the ball, full control, intensity was there. And even David Moyes himself said it was really difficult. They were defensively solid, and if you look back at last season, Everton have always been very organised, haven't they, for the most part, grinding out a lot of draws or even scraping wins last year. Now Leeds, of course, still lacking creativity up top. Have just signed Noah Okafor. He was, from what I've seen, a bit of a last-minute hero for AC Milan when he came up with some late goals. But he does need a good run out and not to be injured because he's quite injury-prone. Maybe Daniel Farke can get the best out of him, and if he does, then he could be a very good player. Leeds played against him in pre-season, and I think that was partly why maybe they thought, oh, he looks like a good player, maybe we should look at getting him. So it's one of those, it could be a really good signing, or it could just fall flat on your face. So I guess we'll see. I don't envision him starting, much like Eze, who was just signed for Arsenal. Obviously a quality signing and only wanted Arsenal, much to Spurs' demise there. So yeah, I don't see him starting. I think Eze will be on the bench. Maybe even Okafor might be on the bench too. Leeds have also lost the captain Ampadu now up until after the international break, after an unfortunate tackle or how it basically happened during the match against Everton. But I do think it'll be, as I say, comfortable 2-0 win. I think Leeds will try to offer something. I think Anton Stacks looks a very good player too. But I think Arsenal's overall firepower up top will get them over the line here. 2-0. Which then brings us on to Crystal Palace versus Nottingham Forest. So yes, Palace had just lost Eze, so this was quite big in my prediction, really, for Palace. Palace performed very well against the Club World Champions Chelsea. Now, as mentioned earlier, I think Chelsea aren't at 100% yet. They've basically still tried to play catch up due to the extended break that they had in pre-season. So I think even though Palace, and not taking anything away from Palace, their performance was very good, and I think even at Chelsea at their best, it would have been a really, really tough day for Chelsea. I could see this being a tight game, and again, when you've got the likes of Chris Wood up front for Nottingham Forest, who has that clinical nature, that clinical approach in front of goal, it's always possible to score, especially because his size, his height. He can be a header, it can be a cross, set piece. Morgan Gibbs-White as well, with that little bit of spark up top. Mateta, again, he's quite similar in that regards, isn't he? Very, very good up top, and he's definitely someone I would want at Leeds United. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. But I do think here it'll be a relatively tight game. We know how Forest play. They're very organised, aren't they? Nuno always has them organised for the most part. I do think it'll be a draw. I'm going to go 1-1. I think that loss of Eze could be quite big for them. I think if they had Eze, I maybe could have seen a Palace win. I do think they might need to replace him. It looks like they're going for Bilal El Khanous. Again, could be a really solid signing for the future, and could even end up with the likes of Real Madrid or Barcelona, which is what a lot of the Leicester fans think. So that's one to keep an eye on the future. 1-1. And now we have Everton v Brighton. It's going to be the first game at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, isn't it? So we can probably expect an electric atmosphere, shall we say, especially after losing 1-0 to Leeds, which would have been quite disappointing maybe for Everton. Was it expected from Everton fans? I mean, looking online, some of them think, yeah, they're still lacking a number of bodies. Jack Grealish came on, didn't look like he offered much, but again, it's difficult sometimes when you come into a game where largely you've been the inferior team. Maybe you might look to start this game, or is it too soon? I'm not too sure. I do think for Everton, from what I saw, they had Ndoye out left, didn't they? I think just put Grealish there, put Ndoye back in the middle, and then have Kiernan, and then have Dewsbury Hall even. I'm going to go say his full name, but no, have Dewsbury Hall in the middle where he'll perform at his best. And I think that might set them in better stead moving forwards. Tieno Barry too. I thought Beto didn't offer a whole lot, especially holding up the ball and winning duels. I thought he really struggled against Leeds' centre backs. So I think maybe giving Barry a try could be a really good option here, especially at home. Brighton, huge blow for them, wasn't it? And for me too, because I had a cheeky small bet on, which Brighton was one of the teams to win, and they were the team to let me down in the end. It is what it is. And so that 96th minute equaliser by Muniz, it was a huge blow for them, especially because, again, I see them challenging for Europe this season, and maybe even the Champions League, depending if the other teams around them struggle. So Yeah, I think another thing for Brighton too is getting Rutter to play in the right position system, because he's so good running forward and drawing fouls and trying to provide that little spark. Him playing as a number 9, it was never his forte, and I'm speaking here as a Leeds fan too, because obviously he was at Leeds before that. I've seen a lot of not disgruntled Brighton fans, but obviously want to see Rutter playing in his more natural position where he can influence the game a little bit more, because he does have the skills as well. So I think put him in maybe a number 10 might be the best position for him, to can try and find the team around him that can complement him. I think that will bode well for Brighton going forward during the season. So yeah, so overall, I think Brighton will be good. I think Everton first game at the Hill Dickinson, if I can spit my words out, blooper there. If Everton can get fired up at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, it's one of those, it could go any way. I mean, Brighton have notoriously struggled in the past against teams that are solid at the back. I do feel like Brighton play well against the expansive types of teams, so this could be a bit tricky for them. I'm going to go down the middle. I'm going to go 1-1. I'm going to bottle it and just go 1-1. Okay. And then the second to last game is Fulham versus Man United. Now, as just mentioned there with the Brighton game before, Fulham didn't look too bad against Brighton overall, and they came away with a solid point in the end. Especially solid because you get a last-minute equaliser, so it's even more solid, I suppose, there from a losing position. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be easily turned over again as they weren't last season. Man United, as we mentioned, looked good against Arsenal. Just didn't have that cutting edge to create that big chance, but Cunha and Burmo, they did look very good, especially Cunha. I thought Cunha in that second half was very good, wasn't he? He's always a bit of he's fired up in his Cunha. He's got that aggressive nature to him, but in a good way, in a passionate way, of course. It's something that you could say has been lacking a little bit at Man United. And so yeah, I think overall with this one, it's difficult, because if you look at last season, these are the games where Man United were dropping points, weren't they? And they've just dropped points against Arsenal, who, yeah, you would say Arsenal, it's Arsenal. You could see them losing to them, but after a good performance, they still didn't get a result. I mean, my brain says they're gonna draw. But kind of not heart, but because I don't really have much love for Man United. Sorry if that offends anyone. I think I'm going to go off, go off the hype of Man U. I'm going to go 2-1. I've really struggled with that prediction there, because I feel like it could go any way again. You just don't really know what you're going to get from Man United. So I'll go with them this time for them to get a win. But if they start showing the tendencies of last season, where they were struggling to get these types of points in these types of fixtures, then in future videos you might see it going the other way. So keep an eye out for that. And then last but not least, we have a big clash actually at St James's Park, though, with Newcastle versus Liverpool. So yeah, Newcastle looked to be lacking a little, didn't they, against 10-man Villa. You can see the difference not having Isak there is currently making, unfortunately for them. They do have a good squad overall, of course, but I think playing Anthony up front is not really their. It's not really what you're going to want, are you, up top to be clinical. Now, could that work in a counter-attacking sense? Perhaps it could, especially if Liverpool dominating the ball, which you would very much expect them to. Again, at St James's Park, you never know. They might have more possession than you probably think for Newcastle. I just think the firepower of Liverpool is too much. I mean, they scored 4 goals against Bournemouth. Yes, Bournemouth had a lot of defensive changes. But they did still create, and when you've got the likes of the players up top like Ekitike running at you, Salah, Wirtz as well, who can create anything out of nowhere too, you do feel like Liverpool could score at least 2 goals at any given moment, don't you? And in fairness, they did that right at the end of the game, didn't they, against Bournemouth, when it was 2-2, and then the 88th minute, they go on and score another 2 goals. So, for me, it won't be comfortable again for Liverpool. I just think Newcastle will be lacking at the attacking end of the pitch. So I'm going to go a tight 2-1 here. And that will, that's the end of the predictions for this week. Please again put your comments below, what you think the games will end up being this week, and also if you can drop a like and subscribe, that would be really, really useful and helpful for me, and definitely greatly appreciated. So yeah, there we go, and thanks a lot, and until the next one, goodbye.